Antes de empezar, si quieres clases de inglés conmigo, métete a englishwithdane.com/classes y reserva tu plaza. For this course, hay clases en grupos reducidos de 4 personas máximo y para alumnos de nivel intermedio 1 e intermedio 2. So, ya sabes, métete a englishwithdane.com/classes y disfruta de clases semanales muy dinámicas, prácticas y diseñadas para que mejores de manera rápida y eficiente. Hey, what's up? What's going on? Welcome to English with Dane, a podcast designed to improve your English. As always, I'm your host, Dane, and you can find me on Instagram and TikTok at English with Dane. If you want full transcripts for future episodes of English with Dane, para que no te pierdas ni una palabra, so you don't miss a single word, go to englishwithdane.com/transcripts. Today's episode is a Halloween special. We're going to read a creepy story I found online to get into the Halloween spirit. And then, of course, we'll do a vocabulary check because I'm sure we'll find some great new words, expressions, phrasal verbs, and more. So let's get right into it. You are listening to episode 149 of English with Dane. Hit it. Okay, we have officially started the show, so let's read this creepy story. I got this from Reddit, by the way. If you don't know Reddit, check it out because it's one of the best websites of all time. Anyway, here's the story. It's called The Smiling Man, and it was submitted by user Blue Title. I'll link the story in the description of the episode as always. Okay, here we go. The Smiling Man. About 5 years ago, I lived downtown in a major city in the US. I've always been a night person, so I would often find myself bored after my roommate, who was decidedly not a night person, went to sleep. To pass the time, I used to go for long walks and spend the time thinking. I spent 4 years like that, walking alone at night, and never once had a reason to feel afraid. I always used to joke with my roommate that even the drug dealers in the city were polite. But all of that changed in just a few minutes of one evening. It was a Wednesday, somewhere between 1 and 2 in the morning, and I was walking near a police-patrolled park, quite a ways from my apartment. It was a quiet night, even for a weeknight, with very little traffic and almost no one on foot. The park, as it was most nights, was completely empty. I turned down a short side street in order to loop back to my apartment when I first noticed him. At the far end of the street, on my side, was the silhouette of a man dancing. It was a strange dance, similar to a waltz, but he finished each box with an odd forward stride. I guess you could say he was dance walking, headed straight for me. Deciding he was probably drunk, I stepped as close as I could to the road to give him the majority of the sidewalk to pass me by. The closer he got, the more I realized how gracefully he was moving. He was very tall and lanky, and wearing an old suit. He danced closer still until I could make out his face. His eyes were wide and wild, head tilted back slightly, looking off at the sky. His mouth was formed in a painfully wide cartoon of a smile. Between the eyes and the smile, I decided to cross the street before he danced any closer. I took my eyes off him to cross the empty street. As I reached the other side, I glanced back and then stopped dead in my tracks. He had stopped dancing and was standing with one foot in the street, perfectly parallel to me. He was facing me, but still looking skyward. smile still wide on his lips. I was completely and utterly unnerved by this. I started walking again, but kept my eyes on the man. He didn't move. Once I had put about half a block between us, I turned away from him for a moment to watch the sidewalk in front of me. The street and the sidewalk ahead of me were completely empty. Still unnerved, I looked back to where he had been standing to find him gone. For the briefest of moments, I felt relieved, until I noticed him. He had crossed the street and was now slightly crouched down. I couldn't tell for sure due to the distance and the shadows, but I was certain he was facing me. I had looked away from him for no more than 10 seconds, so it was clear that he had moved fast. I was so shocked that I stood there for some time, staring at him. And then he started moving toward me again. He took giant, exaggerated, tiptoed steps as if he were a cartoon character sneaking up on someone, except he was moving very, very quickly. I'd like to say that at this point I ran away or pulled out my pepper spray or my cell phone or anything at all, but I didn't. I just stood there, completely frozen, as the smiling man crept toward me. And then he stopped again, about a car length away from me, still smiling his smile, still looking to the sky. When I finally found my voice, I blurted out the first thing that came to mind. What I meant to ask was, "What the fuck do you want?" in an angry, commanding tone. What came out was a whimper. What the fuck? Regardless of whether or not humans can smell fear, they can certainly hear it. I heard it in my own voice, and that only made me more afraid. But he didn't react to it at all. He just stood there, smiling. And then, after what felt like forever, he turned around very slowly and started dance walking away. Just like that. Not wanting to turn my back to him again, I just watched him go until he was far enough away to almost be out of sight. And then I realized something. He wasn't moving away anymore, nor was he dancing. I watched in horror as the distant shape of him grew larger and larger. He was coming back my way, and this time he was running. I ran too. I ran until I was off the side of the road and back onto a better lit road with sparse traffic. Looking behind me then, he was nowhere to be found. The rest of the way home, I kept glancing over my shoulder, always expecting to see his stupid smile, but he was never there. I lived in that city for 6 months after that night, and never went out for another walk. There was something about his face that always haunted me. He didn't look drunk, he didn't look high. He looked completely and utterly insane. And that's a very, very scary thing to see. Creepy. That's terrifying. Parks at night are super scary, I feel. I would have never done what this person did by myself at 2 a.m. walking through dark parks. Forget it. All right, vocabulary check. Let's start with a ways, or a ways from something or somewhere. A ways, 2 words, just the letter A, and then ways, spelled W-A-Y-S. A ways means a long distance, essentially. The sentence was, I was walking near a police-patrolled park quite a ways from my apartment. You'll hear people say a ways away a lot, too. Next up, we have the phrasal verb to look back. The sentence was, I turned down a short side street in order to loop back to my apartment when I first noticed him. To loop back means, loop as in una vuelta, a loop. To loop back means to walk or drive in a way that leads back to where you started. The person telling the story turned down a street to go back to his or her apartment, but not the same way she came, right? So to do a full circle, to loop back and come back to the same place where you left. Then there's lanky, Lanky. lanky. The sentence was, he was very tall and lanky and wearing an old suit. If someone is lanky, they are tall and thin. Ungracefully tall and thin, usually. And speaking of ungracefully, let's talk about gracefully. The sentence was, the closer he got, the more I realized how gracefully he was moving. To do something gracefully means to do it elegantly, with class. So this person was surprised with how elegantly, let's say, this person was moving. Con gracia in Spanish, I guess. Next up, we have two different things to talk about in one sentence. Let's read the sentence again first. As I reached the other side, I glanced back and then stopped dead in my tracks. So the verb to glance. To glance at something or someone means to quickly look at them. You can also use it in noun form. He took a glance, for instance. Then we have an expression, to stop dead in your tracks, pararte en seco in Spanish. Dead as in muerto. So let's read that sentence again. As I reached the other side, I glanced back and then stopped dead in my tracks. Next we have unnerved. To be unnerved, con doble N, unnerved, by something means to be bothered or worried by something, or someone in this case. Something can be unnerving, in adjetivo, something can be unnerving, and you can feel or be unnerved. In this case, the sentence was, I was completely and utterly unnerved by this. Maybe we should also talk about utterly, ya que estamos. Utterly, spelled U-T-T-E-R-L-Y, means completely and absolutely. So this person was utterly, completely, and absolutely unnerved. All right, let's do two more before we finish up. This next one is a phrasal verb that I've actually talked about on the show before. To blurt out. Blurt spelled B-L-U-R-T, blurt. The sentence was, when I finally found my voice, I blurted out the first thing that came to mind. To blurt out means to say something abruptly and impulsively, so without really thinking. I guess in Spanish we would just say like soltar or dejar salir, or I'm not sure. Okay, one more. Last but not least, we have regardless. This is one that a lot of people are familiar with but use incorrectly. Regardless means despite the circumstances, or without regard or consideration for. In this case, it's used along with whether or not. The sentence was, regardless of whether or not humans can smell fear, again, regardless of whether or not humans can smell fear, they can certainly hear it. So without caring, right? Without caring if humans can smell fear or not, they can certainly hear it. This is one that you'll have to practice a bit more. And for some reason, some people say irregardless, right? Con el prefijo, irregardless, which is totally wrong. If you hear someone say irregardless, don't copy them, not a real word. And also, it would mean, significaría, it would mean the same thing as regardless, which is super silly. All right, that's it for this episode of English with Dane. I hope you enjoyed it and I hope you learned something. If you made it this far, si llegaste hasta aquí, if you made it this far, give it a 5-star rating on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. Remember, if you want transcripts for all future episodes so you don't miss a word, go to englishwithdane.com/transcripts and sign up to the listener list. You'll receive full transcripts for new episodes on the same day as they come out. If you want past episode transcripts, you can get those there too. That's englishwithdane.com/transcripts. All right, talk soon. Later.